We gather here today to tell the truth and shame the devil because true history matters. We are here to remind this county, state, and nation that before Joseph Rainey was a U.S. representative and a radical Republican, he was an enslaved child purchased out of freedom by his father. His entire life was informed by his humble and impactful beginnings. We are here to clarify the impact of Joseph Rainey as a citizen, statesman, U.S. representative, and American hero. Joseph H. Rainey read Shakespeare, Plato, and other great writers and philosophers. So it is appropriate to quote, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first practice to deceive." I want to introduce Ms. Ernestine Giddens of the NAACP to share historical facts regarding Joseph Rainey, Reconstruction, and Civil Rights.
Good evening. My name is Ernestine Giddens. Joseph Rainey was the first African American to be seated in the United States House of Representatives and the first member of Congress born into enslavement. He was an architect of a crucial period in U.S. history, the era known as Reconstruction. In 1861, he was conscripted or forced into service for the Confederacy, but managed to make his way to Bermuda because foreign vessels were still permitted to trade in South Carolina, so he took advantage of the trade process. After escaping to Bermuda, Rainey educated himself, worked as a barber alongside his wife, who was a seamstress. They were active in politics and the community. In 1866, they returned to America. December 12, 1870, Joseph Rainey, the first colored member of the House of Representatives, came forward and was sworn in. In 1874, Rainey opposed the Chinese Exclusion Act. He spoke out on behalf of other oppressed minorities, opposing a bill to ban Chinese workers from taking part in a federally funded construction project in San Francisco. They come here and are willing to work and assist in the development of the country. I say that the Chinaman, the Indian, the Negro, and the white man should all occupy an equal footing under this government, should be accorded equal right to make their livelihood and establish their manhood. In the summer of 1874, he moved his family to Connecticut because of the constant threat of violence. In February of 1875, Rainey made it clear that black politicians were not going anywhere. "We do not intend to be driven to the frontier as you have driven the Indian," said Rainey, who was also a member of the House Indian Affairs Act Committee and a champion of the Indian rights. "Our purpose is to remain in your midst as an integral part of the body politic." In March of 1875, President Grant signed the Civil Rights Act. The new law required that all persons within the jurisdiction of the United States shall be entitled to the full and equal enjoyment of the accommodations, advantages, facilities, and privileges of inns, public conveyances on land or water, theaters, and other places of public amusement, subject only to the conditions and limitations established by law and applicable alike to citizens of every race and color, regardless of any previous condition of servitude. The second section provided that any person denied access to these facilities on account of race would be entitled to monetary restitution under a federal court of law.
Thank you for those words regarding Joseph Rainey. After that law was passed, it was soon it began the end of Reconstruction in 1877, where the federal government did nothing to protect the African American elected officials and populace. As a matter of fact, in 1877, there was, by the Republican Party, a compromise with the Democrats to allow Rutherford B. Hayes to be the President of the United States. It is from there that Jim Crow started and Reconstruction started. On March 3rd, 1879, Rainey gave his final remarks to the U.S. House of Representatives, and the roots of Jim Crow laws began not only then, but they had begun as early as 1665 as the fight started to enact black codes. Contrary to information being spread by the Republican Party, in August 1957, Strom Thurmond, U.S. Senator, a Dixiecrat, began a 24-hour filibuster against the 1957 Civil Rights Act. Nevertheless, the act was signed and passed 2 hours after the filibuster and was signed within 2 weeks by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The Jim Crow was also present in the North, but it ended once the civil rights bills and laws went into place. So in spite of the way this plaque was handled, leaving out the black community, the Gullah Geechee community in Georgetown, even though program participants were told this would be a nonpartisan event, and it was not nonpartisan when the Republican Party was involved and sent out invitations where it could have been simply the city of Georgetown. They disrespect the impact and heritage of Joseph H. Rainey when they leave out 48% of the population of the city of Georgetown. So we are here to demand that the correction will be made upon the plaque, an apology made to this community, and that we will also hold educational opportunities in this community to learn more about Joseph Hayne Rainey. Throughout this entire process, not only, as you can see in the presentation of the planning committee, that the community was not represented, the entire event was misrepresented as a nonpartisan event. Clearly, this was not true. It was also shared with members of the program and other elected officials and community members who Joseph Hayne Rainey was, in spite of the fact many of us already knew who Joseph Hayne Rainey was. This was a sham. This was disrespectful to his legacy and heritage, and we can only say that we were thankful that Lorna Rainey, his great-granddaughter, was here to present much more accurate information, and as you heard, factual information presented by a member of the NAACP. We're now opening to any questions from the media.
Can you tell me the party affiliation of Mr. Williams and Ms. Rainey?
They have to tell you that.
Okay. Are you a Democrat, a Republican, or Democrat?
Democrat. I don't know. I'm gonna tell you how it's partisan, because I got the receipts right here. When I received the letter, it said, "Steve, we would like you to be a part of the program," and I instantly said yes, because Rainey is one of my heroes.
Right.
At that time, I didn't know who was sponsoring it, and I really didn't care. I generally don't ask people what their religion or their political affiliation is. I only relate to them as they relate to me. They treat me well, I treat them well. But I found out a week later, one of the gentlemen, first of all, you have to understand that there was no blacks on the committee, which is why the plaque says slave. We don't even use that term anymore. It's enslaved. Nobody's born a slave. God doesn't make slave. We can be enslaved, and we were. But if you don't have blacks on the committee, and they don't have to be a Republican, but you want information to be accurate. Second of all, the gentleman said that this thing should be nonpartisan, and he's for everybody. Well, when I got the material that he sent me, I'm not going to nominate him unless you force me to, but he's over there. He sent me 13 links about Joseph Haynes Rainey, as if I didn't know about Joseph Haynes Rainey. And one of the links was the Griot magazine, the only black that's owned by Byron Allen. He's a mega, he owns several television shows and radio. And it said that, which is maybe, I don't know for sure, maybe why Clyburn didn't show up, because the article said that this is some politicized, biased stuff, that Clyburn is talking about blacks are not being treated well at the polls. All right? Now, and then I'll shut up. There was over 130 people invited, including the governor, both senators, Lindsey Graham, Uncle Tim Scott, and a whole lot of other people. The one person they did not invite, guess who? Clyburn. That was not a mistake. That's a slap in the face to the Georgetown community, because nobody, including me, has championed Joseph Haynes Rainey more than James Clyburn.
But was anything said at the podium today that was not true?
Let's make it clear.
Yeah, I mean,
that the Republican Party of 2024 is not the Republican Party
no.
that Joseph Haynes Rainey would belong to.
Did you
the implication is that he is a Republican that would agree and support everything that they stand for. So, Scott, you may not have heard them say what you're asking, but they know exactly what they're doing, and we are here because we are tired of the gaslighting, we are tired of the misinformation, we are tired of the misconstruing of history. This is tied into recently the Republican State Board of Education rescinding AP African American history. This is tied into the fight against the Fearless Fund, denying Black women entrepreneurs funding, denying affirmative action in the Supreme Court. So let's not play the games anymore. And this year of the Lord 2024, election year of the Republicans misusing Joseph Haynes Rainey, misconstruing his legacy and history. So thank God that Lorna Rainey was here to set the record straight.